Hello, dear listeners. I'm thrilled to welcome you to this spine-chilling tale that will surely send shivers down your spine. Sit back, relax, and let me take you on a journey into the unknown, where love, mystery, and terror intertwine. Every evening after a long day at work, a man named John would drive home through the quiet, winding roads of a small village in the countryside. One fateful evening, he noticed a young woman standing at the side of the road, waving a white handkerchief. Her name was Emily, and she lived in a nearby village called Willowbrook. John, being a kind-hearted person, offered her a ride home. This small act of kindness soon became a daily routine, and over time, the two grew fond of each other. As the days passed, John and Emily's conversations became more personal, and their bond deepened. One evening, as Emily was about to get out of the car, she handed John her favorite handkerchief as a token of her affection. John was overjoyed and couldn't stop thinking about her. However, that night, something terrifying happened. At midnight, John awoke to find Emily standing at the foot of his bed. Her face was pale, and her eyes were hollow. She whispered his name, and then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she vanished. John was left shaken and confused, unsure if it had all been a dream. The next morning, John recounted the experience to his best friend Michael, who was skeptical but supportive. They decided to visit Emily's home in Willowbrook to clarify the situation. When they arrived, they were greeted by an elderly woman who revealed a shocking truth. Emily had died tragically in an accident years ago. She had been picking wild berries on a hillside when she stumbled into an old, abandoned minefield and triggered an explosion. The villagers found her body, disfigured and lifeless. John and Michael were stunned. How could he have been talking to Emily every evening if she had been dead for years? The elderly woman showed them Emily's room, which had been left untouched since her death. There, on her dresser, was a photograph of Emily with the same white handkerchief that she had given to John. As they left the house, John couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's spirit was trying to tell him something. That night, he dreamt of Emily again. She was standing by his bed, her face twisted in agony, whispering his name. This time, she reached out and touched his face with a cold, clammy hand, sending a jolt of terror through his body. He woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. Over the next few days, the dreams continued, each one more vivid and horrifying than the last. Emily's ghostly presence grew stronger, and John could feel her cold breath on his neck and hear her anguished whispers in his ear. He began to see her apparition everywhere, in his car's rearview mirror, in the reflections of windows, and even in the shadows of his own home. Desperate for answers, John and Michael sought the help of a local historian who specialized in the supernatural. The historian revealed that Emily's spirit was likely bound to the earthly realm by unfinished business. She had died so suddenly and violently that her soul was unable to find peace. John realized that he had to help Emily find closure. He decided to visit the site of her tragic accident. Accompanied by Michael and the historian, they trekked to the hillside where Emily had died. As they approached the spot, a chilling breeze swept through the air, and the atmosphere grew heavy with an eerie silence. At the site, John found remnants of the old minefield, now overgrown with weeds and moss. He knelt down and placed Emily's handkerchief on the ground, whispering a heartfelt apology and promising to remember her always. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and Emily's ghostly figure appeared before them. She looked at John with sorrowful eyes, then slowly began to fade away, finally finding the peace she had longed for. The haunting dreams ceased, and John felt a sense of relief and sadness. He knew that Emily's spirit had moved on, but the memory of her would stay with him forever. As he and Michael left the hillside, the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the landscape. It was a new day, and with it came the promise of hope and healing. John tried to move on with his life, but the haunting memories of Emily lingered in his mind. Although the nightmares had ceased, a sense of unease remained. Michael, always a skeptic, urged John to forget about the past and focus on the future. Reluctantly, John agreed, hoping to find solace in the routine of everyday life. However, peace was short-lived. One evening, as John drove home from work, his car radio crackled to life with static, and an all-too-familiar voice whispered his name. "John!" It was Emily. Panic surged through him, and he nearly swerved off the road. The voice was faint but unmistakable. He turned off the radio, but the voice continued to echo in his mind. Desperate for answers, John revisited the historian who had helped him before. The historian, a wise and compassionate woman named Eleanor, listened intently to his story. She explained that sometimes spirits can be drawn back to the living by strong emotional ties or unfinished business that was not fully resolved. Eleanor suggested they perform a seance to communicate directly with Emily's spirit. Though skeptical, John agreed, hoping to find closure once and for all. The seance was set for the following night at Eleanor's quaint, candlelit home, a place steeped in history and mystery. As the seance began, Eleanor instructed John and Michael to join hands and clear their minds. The room was filled with the soft glow of candles, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Eleanor began to chant softly, calling upon Emily's spirit to come forth. The temperature in the room dropped, and a chill ran down John's spine. Suddenly, a gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging the room into darkness. John felt a presence cold and unsettling. A faint glow appeared in the corner of the room, and slowly Emily's ghostly figure materialized. Her eyes were full of sorrow, and she seemed to struggle to speak. "John, I need your help," she whispered. John, his voice trembling, asked, "What do you need, Emily? How can I help you find peace?" Emily's figure flickered, her voice barely audible. "The minefield? There is someone still there. You must find them." With that, Emily's apparition faded, and the room returned to its normal state. John and Michael were left in stunned silence. Eleanor, though visibly shaken, composed herself and explained that Emily's spirit had indicated another lost soul at the minefield site. Determined to uncover the truth, John and Michael, with Eleanor's guidance, returned to the hillside. The air was thick with tension as they approached the spot where Emily had died. John felt a strange pull, guiding him to a particular area. They began to dig, their hands trembling with anticipation and fear. After hours of digging, they uncovered a small, rusted metal box. Inside, they found a bundle of old letters and a photograph of a young couple, Emily and a man they had never seen before. The letters revealed a tragic love story. The man, named Daniel, had been Emily's fiancé, but he had gone missing around the same time as her death. The letter spoke of their plans to elope, their dreams of a future together, and their undying love. Eleanor pieced together the story. Daniel had likely followed Emily to the hillside that fateful day, and had perished in the explosion, his body never found. Emily's spirit had been restless, searching for her lost love, unable to move on without him. Realizing what they had to do, John and Michael gathered the letters and the photograph and held a small ceremony at the site. They read the letters aloud, sharing the love and dreams that Emily and Daniel had once cherished. As they finished, a soft, warm light enveloped the hillside, and for a brief moment, the figures of Emily and Daniel appeared, hand in hand, smiling peacefully before fading into the light. John felt a profound sense of relief and closure. Emily's spirit, along with Daniel's, had finally found peace. As they left the hillside, the sun set, casting a golden glow over the landscape, signaling the end of a long and haunting journey. Despite helping Emily and Daniel find peace, John couldn't shake the feeling that something was still amiss. Nights were restless, filled with fleeting shadows and distant whispers. His curiosity and sense of duty drove him to continue digging into the past, hoping to uncover any remaining secrets. One evening, while sifting through old village records at the local library, John stumbled upon a series of peculiar incidents that had occurred around the same time as Emily's death. Several villagers had reported seeing ghostly apparitions and experiencing strange phenomena near the hillside. One name stood out in these accounts: a man named Richard, who had been a recluse living at the edge of Willowbrook. Intrigued, John decided to visit Richard's old house, now abandoned and overgrown with ivy. Michael, ever the loyal friend, joined him, though with a fair share of reluctance. As they approached the decrepit house, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior covered in dust and cobwebs. Inside, they found Richard's journal, its pages filled with frantic scribbles about the minefield, strange lights, and ghostly figures. Richard had been obsessed with the supernatural, convinced that the hillside was a gateway to another realm. His final entry spoke of a ritual he believed would open the gateway and allow him to communicate with the spirits trapped there. Eleanor, the historian, joined them at Richard's house to decipher the journal. She explained that Richard had been attempting to contact the spirits, but his obsession had likely led to unintended consequences. His ritual may have inadvertently trapped more souls, causing the disturbances in the village. Determined to right the wrongs of the past, John, Michael, and Eleanor prepared to perform a counter-ritual to close the gateway and release any trapped spirits. They gathered the necessary items as described in Richard's journal: candles, herbs, and a ceremonial dagger, and returned to the hillside under the cover of night. The air was thick with tension as they set up the ritual site. Eleanor led the ceremony, chanting ancient incantations, while John and Michael followed her instructions. As the ritual progressed, the ground trembled, cold wind howled through the trees. Ghostly figures began to appear, their faces twisted in anguish. Suddenly, a powerful force knocked them to the ground. The gateway had opened, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow. Through the chaos, John saw the faces of countless spirits, trapped and pleading for release. Summoning all his courage, he approached the vortex, holding Emily's handkerchief as a symbol of hope and closure. "Emily, Daniel, and all lost souls, find peace," he shouted into the vortex. "Your stories are heard. Your pain is felt. Be free." With a final chant from Eleanor, the vortex began to close, the spirits slowly dissipating into the night. The wind calmed, and an eerie silence fell over the hillside. The ritual had worked. The gateway was sealed, and the spirits were at rest. As they packed up their belongings, a soft, warm light enveloped the hillside once more. This time, it was Emily and Daniel, their faces serene and grateful. They smiled at John, their forms shimmering before fading into the night. John felt a deep sense of relief and fulfillment, knowing that he had helped bring peace to those who had suffered for so long. Returning to the village, John, Michael, and Eleanor shared their experiences, ensuring that the tale of Emily, Daniel, and the restless spirits would be remembered. It was a story of love, loss, and redemption, a reminder that the past often reaches out to us in unexpected ways. And so, dear listeners, our tale comes to an end. Thank you for joining me on this harrowing journey. Remember, the past is never truly gone, and sometimes it needs a voice to find peace. Until next time, stay safe and keep an open heart for those who might need it.